What we're going to do is have our keynote and then start the panels. We're running a little bit late. Unfortunately, it's Los Angeles. There's a lot of traffic. But one of the folks who is the czar of Los Angeles, Kat Packer, who's going to be our keynote here, did make it through the traffic. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. Kat is the Executive Director of the Department of Cannabis Regulation for the City of Los Angeles. She's the first Executive Director of the Department of Cannabis Regulation for the city, where she oversees the implementation of the city's new commercial cannabis regulatory program. Prior to this role, Ms. Packer served as California Policy Coordinator for the Drug Policy Alliance, where she worked to ensure the successful and equitable implementation of California's recently passed Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Prior to joining DPA, Ms. Packer served as the campaign coordinator for Californians for Responsible Marijuana Reform, Drug Policy Actions, social justice-driven campaign in support of the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Ms. Packer also has participated in marijuana policy reform efforts in Ohio. She served there as the Deputy Director of Central Ohio NORML and participated in their statewide legalization effort in 2015. She's an alumnus of The Ohio State University, where she received a Bachelor in Political Science, a Master's in Public Policy and Management, and a JD. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Kat Packer.
I spent 7 years at Ohio State University, so you have to say after spending so long there. I don't miss winter quarter at 8:30 in the morning trucking through the snow, so I appreciate being here in the city of Los Angeles. It's a joy to join you here this morning. It's a intimate crowd that we have here, but I'm going to share a little bit of information about what the city of Los Angeles has been doing over the course of the last 14 months or so in the development and implementation of our cannabis policies. Just want to share, many folks who are tracking this conversation probably know that today and this morning, Canada began its nationwide sales. And it was interesting, I was paying attention to some of the headlines that I saw coming out of the news coverage of what's happening in Canada, and someone tweeted that Canada is now the United States' older cousin that we can get pot from. And I thought that that was interesting, particularly because I don't know why anyone would want to go to Canada to get their cannabis, because I think that folks here in the state of California know that some of the best products are grown and made right here. In the city of Los Angeles specifically. Albeit folks who are operating in this industry were probably doing so in an underground fashion and in ways that weren't regulated. We are now licensing for the first time commercial cannabis activity in the city, and with that new responsibility comes many different challenges and opportunities. The City of Los Angeles in the past expressly prohibited any cannabis businesses, even those that were just engaged in medical operations. And it created a very complicated framework to try and manage what it called limited immunity, essentially prohibiting everyone from engaging in activity but giving certain folks immunity from prosecution. We've come a long way in the sense that beginning on January 1st of this year, we for the first time began to issue express authorizations for businesses who are engaging in commercial cannabis activity. And even just to call what we're doing express authorization was a challenge. We went through a series of policy conversations where the city first wanted to issue certificates of compliance instead of giving express authorization. So local governments have been struggling to get their efforts off the ground. But I've been in close communication with regulators across the state of California, specifically in Oakland, Sacramento, San Francisco. We communicate on a regular basis. I just took a trip out to Denver a few weeks ago to learn more about where they are in their practice 6 years after they've begun their regulatory programs. And I have to admit that my trip to Denver a couple of weeks ago was reassuring for me, because I was able to see exactly what we can do. And there are certain policy conversations that are happening, for example, in Denver right now, 6 years after the fact, that the city of Los Angeles and that the state of California have already considered and are implementing. For example, the city of Denver has not implemented a scalable, in the state of Colorado, has not implemented a scalable delivery infrastructure, but the state of California has begun with one. The city of Denver and the state of Colorado are still exploring options to allow for what we're calling on-site consumption 6 years in. And these are conversations that many jurisdictions throughout the state of California are already implementing or beginning to consider. But cannabis legalization and regulation and having cannabis businesses in the state of California and in the city of Los Angeles is going to require folks working together collaboratively towards some common goals. So I'm going to spend the last couple of minutes talking about what some of my goals are for the city of Los Angeles as we move forward. And it's important for us to kind of collectively share these goals, because we understand that as the largest city in the United States to regulate both medical and adult use, we have a lot of folks watching us. Just a few weeks ago, we had folks from New York, their police department, come out and meet with us in our police department because they are considering legalization. And there are many different stakeholders and many different interests to consider as we move this conversation forward. And largely, the concepts and values and vision that I have for the city of Los Angeles rest around two concepts. One is a concept of harm reduction. So harm reduction essentially is an acknowledgement that there are certain folks in our society who are going to consume cannabis and sell cannabis, and those individuals need to, just like every other stakeholder, have access to certain services, resources, education, protections. And then the second concept is equity, essentially ensuring that the access to those education, resources, services aren't dependent on things like income or where you live or the color of your skin. And so through the implementation of new cannabis policies, we are trying to ensure that we are reducing the harms associated with cannabis policies, cannabis businesses. And in order for us to do so, we need to be able to work with the enthusiasts and the naysayers. These folks need to be able to come into rooms together and identify reasonable policy in the middle. And so that's part of what we've been doing in the city of Los Angeles, is engaging law enforcement, engaging health officials, engaging cannabis enthusiasts, engaging neighborhoods who want nothing to do with cannabis, engaging folks who are working in the cannabis industry, who want to work in the cannabis industry, and trying to figure out how we, as a community, can move this conversation forward. And it doesn't happen overnight. There are many folks who are interested in the cannabis industry who wanted their licenses yesterday. And the truth of the matter is that in order for us to do this the right way, in order for us to do this in a way that is going to allow us to be a model of what responsible cannabis policy look like, there is basic infrastructure that has been neglected for decades that we are tending to. And so the Department of Cannabis Regulation looks forward to continuing to engage with stakeholders in this conversation. We know that there are conversations happening at the federal, state, and local, and even international table every single day. And there's no reason and no excuse why the city of Los Angeles and the state of California can't lead this conversation. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you here this morning. I hope that folks are able to have a robust conversation about cannabis policy, cannabis businesses, the industry, the responsibilities that this industry has to its community. And I look forward to joining you in the future. Take care.